Good evening and welcome to TV Tuần San News of the Week. My name is Emma Doe. In what's making headlines this week, a woman carrying Vietnamese travel documents suspected of murdering Kim Jong-un's half-brother. Renewed protests against Formosa stopped by police. And a Vietnamese boy to receive the country's first lung transplant. In this week's top story, a woman carrying a Vietnamese travel document has been detained over the suspected assassination of Kim Jong-un's half-brother, Kim Jong-nam. The woman was detained on Wednesday by Malaysian authorities at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. The Royal Malaysia Police issued a statement saying the woman was carrying documents stating she was born in the city of Nam Dinh. Malaysia's Deputy Inspector General said police were still looking for a few other suspects in the case who are also foreigners. On Monday, the North Korean leader's half-brother Kim Jong-nam collapsed in KL Airport's shopping concourse. He later died on the way to hospital. Before his death, he told medical workers that he believed he'd been attacked with a chemical spray by one or two female suspects. Kim Jong-nam was estranged from his ruling half-brother. It's believed he held no hopes to be North Korea's successor and lived in multiple places outside the country, including Macau and Singapore. It's not yet known why he might have been assassinated. A woman in the US state of Texas has been charged with murdering her husband and trying to pass his death off as a suicide. The 29-year-old nurse, Từ Thiện Huân, called police claiming her 34-year-old husband, Stephen Hafer, had killed himself with a shotgun in their bedroom. According to a press release from the Houston Police Department, officers found suspicious evidence that led them to believe Huân killed her husband. Huân was a Vietnamese national who moved to the United States in 2004. Police say she kept changing her story and later admitted to having an affair with an ex-boyfriend. Last Monday, Huân appeared in court where the judge ordered her to surrender her passport if she makes her $50,000 bail. Huân and Hafer had been married for 2 years and have a 2-year-old daughter together. Back to news in Vietnam. Hundreds of protesters marching for compensation from Taiwan's Formosa plant were stopped by police on Tuesday. Many of the protesters were fishermen from central Nghệ An province who claimed their livelihoods were affected by a toxic spill from the Formosa steel plant last year. The spill killed tens of millions of fish, making it one of Vietnam's biggest environmental disasters. Protesters had planned to travel 180 kilometres from the central Nghệ An province to submit their compensation claims at Ha Tinh, where the Formosa plant is located. But activists said police stopped protesters early on in the journey. Formosa paid $500 million in compensation last year to cover damages against a 200-kilometre stretch of coastline, but the compensation does not stretch down to the central Nghệ An province. Vietnamese authorities have released a prominent human rights activist and blogger who served 3 years in prison. Relatives and supporters of Bùi Thị Minh Hằng greeted her on Saturday as she emerged from the Ya Chum prison in the country's Central Highlands. Ms. Bùi was arrested and convicted along with 2 other bloggers in 2014 after they reportedly attempted to show support for a dissident Hòa Hảo Buddhist activist who was being harassed by authorities. The 3 were then accused of causing public disorder and obstructing traffic under Article 245 of the Penal Code. Vietnam might soon buy missiles from India as the 2 countries' military cooperation steps forward. India is currently in talks to sell short-range surface-to-air missiles to the Southeast Asian country. If successful, it would be the first transfer of such weapons to Vietnam. Recently, India has been helping train Vietnamese military and patrol vessels. New Delhi is currently talking to a number of different countries about the sales of its missiles, part of the country's move to establish itself as an arms exporter. Security experts believe Vietnam is quietly building its military as a deterrent to China's assertion in the South China Sea. A Vietnamese man has been killed and 3 of his crew members hospitalised after inhaling toxic fumes on a cargo ship. The Vietnamese registered vessel with 21 crew members on board suffered a gas leak as it was making its way from Ho Chi Minh City to the Philippines, transporting rice. The Vimaru Pearl was forced to stop at Malaysia's Tanjung Lipat port on Monday, where about 40 firemen later decontaminated the ship and ended the operation. A 6-year-old Vietnamese boy will receive Vietnam's first lung transplant surgery. The operation will be carried out by Japan's Okayama University Hospital on or around February 21st. A team of about 30 people, including surgeons and anesthesiologists, will perform the operation in a hospital in Hanoi. The boy suffers from lung fibrosis, a disease that causes respiratory failure. The boy will receive parts of lungs from his father and another relative. Meanwhile, back in Australia, 161 illegal fishermen from Vietnam have been found in Australian waters in the past 12 months alone. An Australian Fisheries Management Authority spokesperson said 15 Vietnamese nationals were caught only last week, 4 of whom were repeat offenders. The illegal fishermen are being found in the far north of Australia, often carrying tons of poached sea cucumbers. It's believed the high price of seafood worldwide, coupled with environmental issues in Southeast Asia, are driving poachers to fish in Australian waters. The Australian Fisheries Management Authority said they were working with Vietnam to combat the issue. Vietnam's Ministry of Industry and Trade has called for the Australian government to lift its ban on uncooked prawns from foreign countries. In a letter to the Australian Minister of Agriculture, the Vietnamese Minister of Trade said the ban was hurting Vietnam's prawn farmers and prawn processors. The Australian ban on prawn imports from Asia took effect in early January this year and will last for 6 months. The ban came after an outbreak of white spot disease in Australia, which is carried in raw prawns and can be deadly to other live prawns if spread. 3 families who were returned to Vietnam last year under Australia's boat turn-back policy are being held in Indonesia after fleeing Vietnam a second time by boat. Earlier this month, their lawyer wrote on social media that the families of Chun Thị Thanh Loan, Chun Thị Luo, and Chun Thị Phúc had left the communist country with the intent of arriving in Australia. One of the asylum seekers told SBS News that local fishermen rescued the group of 18 after their boat broke down without anchor off the coast of Java on Friday. The group, which includes 12 children, spent 12 days at sea after leaving their hometown of La Yi shortly after the Vietnamese New Year. The 3 families were among a group of 46 asylum seekers who were returned to Vietnam by the Australian government in 2015. That's all from TV Tuần San News of the Week. For more stories, you can follow TV Tuần San at tvtsonline.com.au and Facebook at TV Tuần San. I'm Emma Doe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to your company at the same time next week. Good evening and welcome to TV Tuần San News of the Week. My name is Emma Doe. In what's making headlines this week, a woman carrying Vietnamese travel documents suspected of murdering Kim Jong-un's half-brother. Renewed protests against Formosa stopped by police. And a Vietnamese boy to receive the country's first lung transplant.